Hey everyone, welcome to the Rising Stars podcast. I am Brianna Moriarty. Today we are talking about emerging markets and trends in the retail space. We have Brett Payette with us from Vend. She leads the Associate Account Executive team and has spent years working directly with retailers. So we're super excited to hear all of her insight and everything that she can tell us about the retail market today. So hey Brett, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Awesome. So can you start off by telling us about Vend, how it started, and kind of where you guys are today?
Yeah, 100%. So Vend was actually one of the first cloud-based point of sales for retailers, which is pretty cool because before that, it was all a lot of server-based systems, nothing that really allowed for the flexibility that retailers really did need.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of Vend, like it grew up in the cloud. So the cool thing about that is that it allowed us to really establish kind of key partnerships as well as a lot of cool integrations. So retailers really can kind of continue to extend their reach. Actually, Vaughn, our founder, so the legend goes, I guess, is that it was back in the financial crisis back in, I think it was 2012 or 2010.
Mm-hmm.
He actually saw a lot of his retail friends struggling to get a hold of their inventory when there was, it was a time where every penny counted, right?
Right.
So he saw that and was like, you know what, I'm going to build Vend to solve it for them. So out of a crisis, here comes that innovation.
Awesome.
And
Well, it was
yeah,
definitely a good turnaround from that. So
yeah,
tell
for
us more
sure.
about you and your time at Vend, and just kind of more about your background in the industry.
Sure, yeah. So I have been with the company for probably about 5 years now. I'm currently the team lead of the North American sales team with managing the associate account executives.
Mm-hmm.
So my path at Vendo hasn't been like exactly straightforward. I started in the sales channel, but then I transitioned into managing and then was also managing the launch team actually at the start of COVID as well. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was pretty intense, So I've really throughout my time at Ben, I've been very heavily customer focused, both
Mm-hmm.
from managing and actually selling. Right now, I'm both managing that team, but then talking to a lot of our enterprise clients and the and kind of some of our partners teams as well. So really kind of close to the partnerships side as well.
Right. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned you were taking over the sales team at the start of COVID. And I know Vend is strongly catered towards SMB retailers. So those small mom and pop businesses or,
Yeah.
where they have only a couple of stores. What was it like for some of those retailers that had to temporarily or permanently close during COVID? What was that experience like for you guys?
Yeah, honestly, it was hard. I think for everyone in the pandemic, I mean, we all experienced this, right? It was just so much uncertainty.
Hmm.
Um, no one from like a societal perspective or a retail perspective really knew what was going to happen. um I don't know about you, but I feel like everyone I know has this kind of story where we left on the Friday and then it was like, oh, I'll see you in 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that was the same sentiment that I was hearing from retailers as well. It's okay, let's be blow over in 2 weeks. And even like just from a company perspective, just take a side note, is that because we're global, we saw an extreme difference in how COVID was managed in different countries. We
Hmm.
saw Auckland just knock it out of the park right away in terms of
Right.
lockdowns. The States opened up fairly quick, and then I'm in Toronto, and we're in our third lockdown where retail is closed again. So it's been really interesting,
Hmm.
just kind of watching that, and unfortunately been fairly hard. But I will say that there was a silver lining with that, because what we were noticing is that for the retailers that were really able to power through, we saw a lot of adaptation and innovation.
Okay.
There were retailers who started doing like Insta Live selling,
Hmm.
so you're really extending your reach to your consumers. There was even the I don't know if you've ever done with them, but the FaceTime selling. So you'd
Hmm.
actually like bring people into the store and like literally still getting that customer experience.
Yeah, I've
Of
never even
course,
heard of that. That's so
yeah,
cool.
it's so cool. I was just
Yeah.
like, when I heard that retailers were doing it, I'm like, wow, you guys are impressive.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course, like, even doing like curbside pickup. which was one of my favorite things that came out of the pandemic, because who doesn't love a gift for yourself on the little walks we take each day? Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I guess the two biggest things that I noticed um, is just that innovation with omnichannel and loyalty. There's just a focus on those two things. It was like, okay, we're struggling. Where can we focus? And I think those were the two that really stood out.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So, how, I guess, did Vend kind of shape their response to the global crisis? Especially, I mean, you mentioned that Canada's in their third lockdown, which is crazy. But so many of your retailers are small businesses based in that area. So, what was kind of the response that Vend took?
Well, I mean, we crapped our pants like everybody else, not literally, but there's a few different ways that we kind of took it. I mean, to start, just understanding where the
Mhm.
retailers are coming from. So from literally a financial side, we offered the ability to pause accounts. There was, promotions going on to like really just help people get through the toughest parts of it.
Mhm.
Um, um, yeah, we do a lot of like retailer interviews, so I think we're pretty close with our retailers.
Yeah.
But yeah, but besides that, from like an actual company perspective as well, is that we really shifted gears.
Mhm.
The product team had a very like fully fledged roadmap, like years down the line, that we just said nope, and we flipped it to a very fully fledged roadmap that then incorporated elements that were going to help our retailers succeed. So like
Mhm.
those omni-channel and the functionalities for loyalty. The other aspect, we even like improved scanner apps so you could have a more accessible inventory where you're kind of more spread out, and so allowing people to have a little bit more safe social distancing. Um, and I feel like there's one more thing, but there was just a lot of product changes that we actually were able to do. But
Yeah, I'm sure. So I know that content is a huge part of Ben's overall
Mhm.
strategy. You guys create amazing content for your retailers. And I think it was shortly after the first shutdown around March of last year, you guys put out this great piece about kind of the phases of COVID and the shutdowns and reopening. I think Star did play a part in that as well. So tell me
Mhm.
about how, this content and being able to provide all these resources and kind of advice for your retailers played into that, um, I guess, response messaging.
Yeah, 100%. And I did see our post on your site as well, so that was
Mhm.
fun to see. But yeah, the blog for the most of the last year was strictly focused on COVID relief, COVID assistance, and COVID help.
Mhm.
Even till Christmas, actually, there was a resource that was still there, like how do you deal with your first, your busiest season potentially as a retailer, Christmas or the
Right.
holidays that is, affected by COVID. So um, with that messaging, it does help to be able to supplement not only like the financial aid that we were doing, but giving our retailers something to work off of, some content. So even though everyone feels a bit like their hands are tied, we're at least giving that information so people can feel like they're making steps forward.
Mhm.
So I mean, I love our blog. I still read it to this day. So
It's a really good one. I always refer, people that are entering the market, to refer to the Venn blog. The information and education that you guys provide the retailers is invaluable.
it really is. And for anyone who's looking for any interest or any information just on like trends in retail overall, I share it with my family and I share it with friends and everything, just to get across it. I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Thank you.
you kind of mentioned some of the things that retailers started doing,
Mhm.
the Instagram live shopping, the FaceTime shopping, which is still crazy to me. But tell me more about, I guess, what's happening today, what's happening now in the retail space, and some of the trends that were, let's say, accelerated by this crisis.
Yeah, accelerated is a great word actually for it, because I think a lot of the stuff was like sitting there kind of half developed, and this really pushed it over the edge. Um, I think for the most part right now, people are getting ready for the rebound.
Mhm.
We always knew there was going to be a retail rebound. And so they've spent this time upgrading systems, refining processes, little things that people I think felt they could wash over because, oh, they had the time and whatnot, have
Mhm.
now been really refined. Everyone is getting real skinny with how they practice their business, right?
Right.
Um, and contactless payments is also a good one that comes to mind. It's especially about the acceleration.
For sure.
Um, yeah, like, it was always kind of there, but this really made it a necessary.
Mhm.
So most of our payment partners all have the contactless payments, and it feels just like most of the retailers that I speak to, they're just really getting ready for the busy season. They're going to be so prepared, more efficient processes. Omnichannel is in place.
Mhm.
Loyalty is locked and ready, locked and loaded.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to what you mentioned, the Instagram Live, the Facebook shopping, or
yeah,
FaceTime shopping. Um, a lot of these businesses may also have e-commerce sites in addition to
Mhm.
that, or you mentioned omni-channel. What is the appeal behind those experiences rather than just going on a site and browsing their page and seeing what they have? What does that live virtual shopping look like in comparison to just standard e-commerce?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of that, it becomes more of a community selling. So you
Okay.
have this kind of excitement around it, right? You go on an Instagram live, you're actually potentially seeing the owner and whatnot selling those products, and so you feel more engaged with the people that you're buying from a consumer's perspective.
Hmm.
And from a retailer, you actually do feel connected directly to your community rather than just seeing a number come in on the page from an e-commerce purchase. It's more like, oh, I recognize that handle or whatever it is. So I think it's just a more interactive way to sell.
Yeah, it makes it really about the experience, which I
Yeah.
think we've all been seeing, the whole retail apocalypse thing. We're going to be shifting more towards experimental retail. So I guess that kind of just vouches for that. And like we said, kind of accelerated that trend.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Right. All right, cool. So we're just going to take a really quick break here to talk about the Start and Pop. Do you wish that you could combine your receipt printer and your cash drawer to save on counter space? Now you can with Star Micronics MPOP. Designed for today's small businesses, the MPOP comes in a sleek design that combines the printer, cash drawer, tablet, and scanner. With the MPOP, there's no clunky, complicated point of sale setup for your business owners to worry about, just a beautiful, easy to use solution that works out of the box with Vend and other popular software applications. To check out the MPOP for yourself, you can visit starmicronics.com/MPOP, that's MPOP, to learn more today. And that link can also be found in today's episode description. Okay, Brett, so I want to hear about your perspective on the future of retail and how it's evolving, all of these accelerated trends that have kind of popped up during what was a terrible pandemic, but really, I think a lot of them are here to stay. So tell me about kind of how the space is evolving and the future of consumer habits.
Yeah. Well, acceleration and innovation do come to mind, obviously. But I guess for years, a lot of people have been talking about the omni-channel theory.
Mhm.
It's better to have both, or you can't have one without the other type of experience. But there was a lot still in the market that was one or the other.
Mhm.
And I think the pandemic was a little bit of a tipping point into proving that theory. If we just think in like a practical sense for myself, I guess I'll use myself as an example is what I mean to say. But so I used to play a lot of hockey,
Okay.
and I will for sure buy my stick tape online.
Mhm.
It's something that I know it's pretty standard. I'm going to purchase that online, maybe from a store that I like. But if I need a new stick, I'm going to go in. I want that tactile experience to be able to to test it out and everything. And I think
Mhm.
you can extrapolate that to a lot of different products, right? Like skincare. If you have a product that you know and love, you may order refills online. But that consumer is more likely going to go into a store to get that advice, that really kind of human to human experience that you get looking
Yeah,
for a new product. Um, and so I think that really is just kind of like the omni-channel experience is being able to combine the best of both worlds,
for
right?
sure. So can you expand a little bit more on the experiential retail and where you see that going? I think a lot of times when we read about it, especially in the context of the whole retail apocalypse, and when we think about experiential retail, we think these big, grandiose experiences where it could be much more simple. So tell me about how it's kind of being implemented today and how you see that moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I think experiences can be very small and very big, as you're kind of pointing out with the AI aspect of things.
Mhm.
But what is an experience to you is some sort of emotional like reaction, right? That Insta Live shopping makes you feel connected.
Mhm.
The same thing would go with experiential shopping of having the experience of feeling recognized or having a loyalty program that really kind of knows your buying habits.
Right.
um yeah, and it also goes to even speaking to like the dual purpose retail as well. Like if you think about someone being able to go looking looking for toys with their kids, and then also being able to get ice cream at the same time.
Yeah.
Have making the whole outing, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but making that accessible for everyone. I think that's kind of the way that it will go, and or the way that it's going, and the way that it's going to stay, honestly.
For sure. And when retailers think about it that way, I think it's a lot more or a lot less scary for
Yeah.
them to say, oh, I have to do all this stuff to make my store more interesting and to bring people in shop. Um,
No, you
so
don't need someone doing tricks in the back.
right. So, I guess going off that, what are some of the things that retailers can do today or in the, I guess, near future if they are currently shut down to kind of cater to the demands of these new buying habits and the omni-channel experience?
Yeah, I think it comes to if you build it, they will come. Uh, Everybody loves a good Field of Dreams reference, right? No, I was
Right.
raised on it, but um, customers, whether they know it or not, and I think they're starting to know it, will be looking for that more cohesive experience between online and in store.
Mhm.
What I mean by that, of course, is like building loyalty programs that allow to translate between both platforms,
Mhm.
but also in kind of like an intuitive sense, like having the same feel that your store that you get on, or like that you get from your online, get it in store and vice versa. So if you're like a really interactive store, you want to have that same kind of feeling on your site and the same kind of marketing and promoting on there. um, but I do think loyalty is a huge one.
Mhm.
People really do want to get feel appreciated in that way.
Absolutely. Do you
Yeah.
have any, I guess, success stories that you could share of some of the Vends retailers that have been able to implement these things to keep themselves afloat, or even just help improve their business overall?
Yeah, actually, with some of the Vend retailers, we've been having a really good surge of interaction with a company called Marcello,
Mhm.
and that company really extends the reach. They do marketing, they do rewards, and because of that, we've had retailers who have literally seen 10 times the ROI. And I'm not just making up numbers. There's a
Mhm.
way to actually track it, and
That's amazing.
yeah, it's amazing because it's allowing them to just send out to their best customers and bring them back in.
Mhm.
And we've seen more than one of that. It's quite an impressive feat just by having that marketing program.
That's great. So, I mean, we're talking about retail, and retail as a whole is so broad. I mean, we have clothing retailers and food retailers and so much. So, tell me about some of the specific markets that you guys are currently working in, and maybe some of the emerging markets that you are seeing in the retail space.
Yeah. Well, Vend works a lot with, you know, a lot of different retailers, of course. You're right, it's very broad. Um, Clothing, bottle shops, what are the big ones that are coming to mind? Kind of boutique grocery stores are the things that are coming to mind. But the
Mhm.
biggest one I think I've seen the most growth in is CBD.
Okay.
Yeah, Vend is very friendly towards CBD, and so we've seen a lot of people coming into the market from that. I'm currently dealing with an account that has 100 and some odd stores with Vend in the CBD space.
Mhm.
And I think it's really cool because it's a relatively new industry in itself, but it's just been skyrocketing. I think that CBD itself breeds a lot of entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
people who maybe unfortunately had lost their jobs or something like that, who are like, hey, I want to do this. I'm familiar with this market. So they're able to actually get in and start a store or something that they've always wanted to do.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of that independently? So, retail stores completely dedicated to CBD, or it being an extension of maybe a health food store or
Mm.
like a body shop, where you get your essential
Lotions
oils
and
and yeah, kind of
yeah.
adding on to that.
Yeah, we're seeing both. I think for the longest time it was more like an addition, but I am seeing more stores that are like that's their primary focus. Now
Okay.
they will have oils and lotions and
Right.
whatnot, but they'll be with CBD in them, pretty much all of them. So
Mhm.
I do think it's really gotten a lot bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm not sure if it's the current state of the lockdown happening in Canada right now,
Hmm.
but dispensaries were considered essential businesses. So
Hmm.
is a retail store that sells CBD considered essential?
Um, no, I don't believe it is actually.
Okay. That's interesting. I was just curious about that. So I guess what do you believe is kind of creating the need for, the CBD market or some of the other emerging markets that you guys are working in?
Well, CBD, I feel like stress. Everyone is looking for a way to, make themselves a better self after COVID-19.
For
So a
sure.
lot of self care is going on, and that kind of leads to CBD because it's a really kind of friendly way to go about about that self care. So
Right.
that makes sense to me. The other thing that, in terms of emerging markets, are like those bottle shops or like restaurants that are combining into retail now because they needed to move product.
Mhm.
But hey, those bottle shops may actually be staying around because they're realizing it's a good revenue stream for them.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So do you see these emerging markets continuing to grow post-COVID, or do you think it's just kind of a limited time type of booming market?
I would hope to say that I think they're going to stick around because when you realize that there is also still a need for those things, like if I'm going back to the restaurant example, people love to just be able to pick up a bottle of wine from their favorite restaurant rather than having to go to the corner dip in air or
Mhm.
LCBO or whatnot.
For sure.
So I think that that's going to stay around, and I think for the most part too, who's going to want to get rid of an added revenue stream?
Mhm.
So there's that aspect. I hope that they will stay.
That's great.
Hmm.
Lastly, I know you guys Vend was recently acquired by Lightspeed.
Hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit more and I guess kind of what the future plans are with this acquisition and Vend?
Yeah. Well, the great thing about Lightspeed is that they are similar to Vend in that they're really focusing on retailers. And so we're able to merge like it is an acquisition, but it feels more like a merge in my mind,
Right.
because it's going to take the best of both worlds from both Lightspeed and Vend, and be able to grow. Like instead of Vend is in 130 countries right now, we'll extend that reach even
Mhm.
further. We've been able to support, 26,000 retailers ourselves, but now we're in a part of a company that services over like 100,000 retailers.
Mhm.
So it's just really cool to be a part of that.
For sure.
And yeah, I think it extends Ven's reach.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing, what comes out of that acquisition and, seeing you guys continue to grow together. Did you have any other kind of last tips for retailers or anyone else that might be listening regarding kind of the growth of the retail industry?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if you have an idea, go for it. There are, out of uncertainty, as we were talking about before, there often leads to a lot of change. Vend
Yeah.
was created out of a financial crisis, and then, look where we are today. And I honestly think that some of the biggest changes that are going to be coming, we don't even know where they're coming from yet. There are
Mhm.
people whom have been, oh, I wanted to do this, I'm going to do it now. Or I started coding over COVID and now I'm writing a program.
Right.
They're, tinkering with existing inventions and then creating something new. So I would say for anyone out there and for retailers, if you want to try it, do it, because that's where the change is going to come, and that's where things grow and change for the better, most of the time. So it's just very exciting, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight and sharing with us. And if you'd like to connect with Brett further, you can find her on LinkedIn. I would also like to take this time to announce to our listeners that I will be running for the vendor seat on the RSPA Board of Directors. Voting will take place at Retail Now. So I'm really looking forward to this and this journey. I work very closely with the RSPA, acting as the chairperson for the Next Gen Committee, and I also serve on the W2W and marketing committees there. I'm very passionate and believe in what the RSPA does for its members, not just getting them connected into the channel, but all the education and resources that they provide for VARs and ISVs, especially those small businesses entering the channel, is really invaluable. They do such great work, and I would love to be a part of their board and will bring the same dedication to the RSPA and the board if I am elected. So I'm really looking forward to that. I appreciate everyone's support. Please vote for me. And just to wrap things up, if you want to learn more about Star Micronics, you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, or go to starmicronics.com. If you enjoyed this episode today, please subscribe and leave a review if your channel offers that. We'd really appreciate it, and it helps us to better spread the word of this podcast. Thanks, everyone.